welcome to American Issues Take One. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and today's title is Trump Owns Congress, or Does He? Before the budget vote that came up in 2024, it appeared that the budget was in for smooth sailing. There was a bipartisan agreement that the budget would be passed. Some provisions, of course, were added into the budget, but Elon Musk and Donald Trump decided at the last second to throw Congress into chaos. And what was that chaos is they didn't like the budget and they didn't want it to go forward. So they put a lot of pressure on the GOP in the House of Representatives. And lo and behold, the budget was busted. And what did Donald Trump want to make sure that went into the new budget? And that was the elimination of the debt ceiling, which is an old held prize from the GOP from years back to put ceilings on the budgets. And he wanted that eliminated. Well, when Donald Trump was first elected, he had everyone fall in line. He had the Senate falling in line, the House of Representatives falling in line, even to some extent the media falling in line. But with this new demand that the debt ceiling be removed, lo and behold, 38 GOP congressmen said, no, we're not going to vote for it. So what happened is they had to take out that provision, and now Donald Trump doesn't seem to be bulletproof as he was before that vote. So back to the title of this show, Trump owns Congress, or does he? And to discuss that topic, I have with me our esteemed guests, Chuck Crumpton, and my co-host, Jay Fidell. Good morning, gentlemen. Okay, Jay, so today, Donald Trump is going to meet with the GOP Senate. And the discussion will be, how do I get my agenda implemented? And how is the best way to do that? So we have close margins in the Senate. They're only a couple senators away for the majority. And as of right now, the House is separated by about three votes, 215 for the Democrats and 218 for the Republicans. Remember, Matt Gaetz, he gave up his seat in the House, so that didn't help the count. So with these tight margins, how does Donald Trump lean on the GOP, Congress, and have them fulfill his wishes, his every whim and wish?
Does Trump own the Congress? And at least for the moment, I think he does. And we're seeing that play out. The meeting with the GOP in the Senate, that is likely to involve his candidates, his nominees. That's what it's about for now. I'll tell you why I think that. And he wants to change Thun's mind about the debt ceiling too. But for the moment, I think it's all about confirming his candidates. He lost some stuff, but Trump doesn't give up. He doubles down. It doesn't matter to him. He feels, and he's probably right, they will fall in line if he just keeps on pushing them and pushing Thun. So notice that he's not meeting with the Democrats, just the Republicans. And that's not conciliatory at all. It's a signal about what's going to happen going forward. Let me mention also, and I'm sure you want to discuss this, his expansionist manifest destiny initiative, to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, to expand in terms of Panama. And Lindsey Graham said this morning, they didn't get any electoral votes from Canada, but they hope to do that the next time. Unbelievable. And of course, Greenland, and maybe by force, who knows? All those things are, in my view, distractions. You have to understand that Trump he's got a mainstream initiative, a mainstream program, and a lot of what he does is a distraction. It will fall to the side. So I suggest to you that it's not going to get renamed the Gulf of America. We are not going to attack Canada or Panama. And those things are distractions. The question is, what are they distractions from? Okay, and sending Elon Musk, and I believe they're working together, the best friends forever, in terms of disrupting things politically in Europe. I think that's a distraction too, because remember, he doesn't care. He's an isolationist. He's an isolationist with an expansionist rhetoric. Manifest destiny, even though he's an isolationist. That's so hypocritical. It's inconsistent completely. So, what is his real purpose here? All this seems to me to be a distraction. And for the moment, it seems to be a distraction from the confirmations. He wants to confirm his nominees. The question really is, he's stranger and stranger, more unhinged all the time, or so it seems. Has he lost it? Is he declining physically, mentally? But I suggest to you that although that may be the case, the core point for Trump is power and money and transactional arrangements to make him the wealthiest man in the world, beyond Putin, beyond anyone. And I suggest to you that he is still powerful, maybe without doing the same kinds of things he was threatening before, like primarying or getting his base to attack you at home. But he's still powerful, and he's powerful with Tune, and he's powerful with the Senate and all the Republicans.
Okay.
So he's going to push his agenda through. That's what I'm telling you, and his agenda is primarily tariffs and deportations for now.
Well, let me follow up on you brought up primarying his GOP senators and House of Representatives. He's done that quite effectively since day one. That if you don't follow me, we'll get enough money, probably Elon Musk's money, and we'll primary you, and you'll no longer be a politician. That didn't seem to work with the 38 congressmen that voted against the budget bill that had the debt ceiling eliminated. How do you account for that?
Well, there's a certain amount of pushback, and it's inherent in the way you framed the whole show, that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't own Congress anymore. There have been signs that people will push back. They may be getting tired of his threats. But I think, and we'll know when this comes up for confirmation, won't we? We'll know whether he still owns Congress. I think they push back because it's a new Congress, it's a new year, it's a new administration, and maybe some of them are feeling their oats. But I'm here to tell you that the dynamic is ultimately, and soon, they won't be feeling their oats. He will overcome them one by one, and he will own Congress. He's good. He's really good.
Okay, thank you. Chuck, do you agree with Jay that currently he does own Congress? And how do you see the current balance of power between Trump and this thing that he calls the big, beautiful lift, or the big, beautiful budget, where he's trying to get multiple things done in the reconciliation process that doesn't go through a Senate vote? And if there's a filibuster of 60 vote requirement, it bypasses that through the reconciliation process. How do you think he does with that?
I think it's a good question, and I think Jay has laid the foundation out really well. Maybe the real question is not whether he gets everything he wants as soon as he asks for it, but whether he winds up getting just about everything he really wants in different stages, in increments. He's got 4 years. He doesn't have to get it now, right? He can get the budget ceiling lifted somewhere down the line, or he can get it moved up to a point where it's not problematic for a while. I think one of the questions is going to be exactly what Jay's alluded to. What are his most important issues to win up front on? And I think in terms of sheer visibility, Jay's exactly right, getting his cabinet approved. If Trump could get the Senate to agree to put them in on a block and approve them en masse, he would do it in a minute. He didn't have that much trouble getting Johnson, who's not a very impressive House Speaker, reappointed as Speaker. So I think what we need to look at is, let's see how it plays out over the first few weeks of his tenure, to see what issues he puts first and pushes hardest for, and what levels of threats he brings to bear.
Okay, well, let's go to those level of threats. Jay said that his rhetoric about Greenland, the Panama Canal, and Canada were distractions. But are these distractions putting undue pressure on the GOP to be accountable to supporting Donald Trump? Because it's outlandish. He's making the United States, or his words at least, are making the United States look like a pariah in the world community. Is it too soon, too much, or too much too soon? Sorry, dyslexia is kicking in here this morning. Your thoughts, because if it is a distraction, it doesn't seem to be all that helpful, in my opinion. What do you think?
No, but assuming that that's true, Tim, and it may well be, why would the GOP worry about being held accountable for somebody who has no accountability at all? Right?
Okay.
If he's not accountable for anything, why should they be accountable for him? I mean, look at what he got away with in the campaign. And Jay's right. The likelihood that he's going to be able to annex and take over Greenland or the Panama Canal or any other sovereign territory, including Canada, that's pure fantasy. But that's not, I think Jay's probably right. That's not what he's talking with the Republican senators about. How fast can he get his cabinet approved so that he can get the immigration measures that he wants in place, and so that he can get the administrative power where all he needs Congress to do is just not set aside anything that he chooses to do through the executive administratively.
All righty. Jay, this next question is somewhat speculative in nature, but in the many, many years that Donald Trump's been in power as president and out of the office of presidency, he seems to be quite effective bullying his members of Congress, specifically, as you mentioned, the ability to say, I'm going to primary you. But over time, doesn't the same threat wear thin? Even with, weak congressmen that, don't really have a big war chest for their campaign funding in the future, doesn't that threat wear thin? And I guess the question ultimately is this: what new strategies does Donald Trump pull out of his bag of tricks to either intimidate or compel congressmen to go along as he sees fit? Are there new tricks, or is it the same old playbook of threatening to primary you into submission?
Well, I think his new trick, at least for the moment, we'll see how long it lasts, is Elon Musk. Elon Musk has a lot of money, and he could, primarying may not be the right word, but he could attack someone who has attacked Trump. Furthermore, remember that Trump is going to control the Department of Justice and the FBI. Even if the nominees that he's suggested so far don't get into office, he'll appoint others who are loyalists. And there's all kinds of ways for him to put pressure on every member of Congress. So, I think the playbook, as you suggest, the playbook has changed. It has changed. It seems to me that he has greater rhetorical power. He's in the headlines more. He knows how to play the game, and he's found what we have found a long time ago. And this is one great big reality show. People come on the stage, they go off the stage, people make outrageous comments, do irrational things, and he controls it all. So I think his power in terms of not only the government, but the people, the people who voted for him, despite his remarks and unhinged promises, The people are going to support him. So what we have is a reality show with a budding prospect for the charismatic leader who turns into a fascist dictator. We're closer to that than we were in the first term. We're closer to that than we were during the Biden administration, where Trump made such a tumult. Yes, I think he's still into intimidating people, bullying them, using all kinds of new playbook weapons against them. It won't be the same, but it may be more effective now.
You threw out the DOJ here in your comment, and every time I think of the DOJ, I think of Merrick Garland, who has announced that he's going to resign before Trump takes office. Well, in the last couple of days, Donald Trump definitely does not want the January 6th committee report investigation to be published. Is Donald Trump successful in squashing that?
Will he be successful? It depends on the 11th Circuit, doesn't it? Eileen Cannon, who is my absolute favorite federal judge, my very, very, very favorite. She has wrecked public confidence, or at least among the people I know in the federal judiciary. That particular ruling about not releasing the report was really ultra vires. She pushed the case up to the 11th Circuit, but now she's still acting on it. The 11th Circuit de facto is going to have to rule on this, and hopefully it'll rule soon. You asked before, does Trump own the Congress? Well, does he own the judiciary too? He owns the Supreme Court, that's for sure. So we're going to find out if he owns the 11th Circuit. We need to see that report. It's a statement of our democracy. It's a statement of the First Amendment. It's a statement of the way government should work in this country. If we don't see that report, it is a signal that those things are seriously undermined.
I agree. I'm very concerned about that, and I am watching closely on that, how that's going. I understand that part of the report would not be released for sure because there's two other individuals that are being prosecuted, and they didn't want to violate their rights by releasing the entire report prematurely before that trial. But I agree. Judge Cannon, though, has been overruled in the 11th Circuit by a panel of judges that have oversight over Judge Cannon, and she's been overruled in the past for some cockamamie decisions she's made. Do you think that prevails?
I think her credibility is way down in the 11th Circuit. But we live in dynamic times where things change. And among the things that are changing is his power and influence, even among lifetime appointee judiciary members. So I really don't know for sure. But it's binary. They're either going to do something or not do something, and they have to do it right away. But I am not, sorry, you guys, I am not all that confident they'll do the right thing.
Okay. Chuck, I know this show's about Congress, but let's explore Trump's influence in the judiciary. And same question to you. Do you think Trump's shadow of influence, the invisible hand, if you will, is he successful in squashing the release of the January 6th report?
Well, one of the leading commentators, legal commentators, came out that pointed out there's absolutely no legal basis at all for Judge Cannon to enjoin the release of that report. It's not an issue in her case. The fact that the Department of Justice is representing the U.S. against Trump in that case doesn't necessarily give her the jurisdiction or the authority to order them to withhold investigative reports. Trump's judicial tactic has traditionally been delay, which has worked really, really well for him. It's essentially precluded effectiveness of any judicial determinations against him, and there have been a good number of them. And so in this case, it would go to the 11th Circuit. A panel of 3 judges would determine it. If he didn't like that result, he could ask for the entire 11th Circuit and bank to review it. If he didn't like that result, he could then ask the Supreme Court to review it. And the Supreme Court justices are assigned different circuits to be the kind of the gatekeepers on that. The 11th Circuit gatekeeper is Clarence Thomas. So there's no reason for Trump to be reluctant to use delay to prevent the release of the report and to try and get it to Clarence Thomas. All he needs to do is to keep it from being released long enough for him to get control of the Department of Justice. And then he can block its release through his appointee, his Attorney General, who, as we remember, is actually former Attorney General of Florida. So look down the line at each of these things. They're all strategic steps. Jay is right. Distraction, delay. What was the other word that was, and denial.
Yeah.
The same words that were used with the United Healthcare
Correct.
assassination.
Right. So in the end, does Merrick Garland finally grow a backbone and decide to do what he needs to do to get that report released? Or does he just, no, I hear no. Go ahead, Jay.
Not going to grow a backbone. I think the Biden administration is losing a backbone here in the last 10 days. They're doing their own kind of distraction, but they're not doing important things.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I wanted to follow up on that because Biden has been extremely silent, particularly with this cockamamie comments from Donald Trump regarding Greenland, Panama Canal, and Canada. I mean, has anyone heard Biden say one thing about how ridiculous that is? Should he say anything? Or is he just too complacent, lame duck president, and he's just waiting to get out of office? Your thoughts, Jay?
The latter. He doesn't see this as an opportunity to correct what Trump is saying or put his own reality test on it. I think he's just only too happy to get out of office. He doesn't have the gumption, or perhaps he doesn't have the position to do it. But he's not going to do it. And if you put this in sort of a human experiment and you assume for a moment that he does do that, what do you think is going to happen? Trump is going to criticize him publicly and bully him and bully his friends and family and who knows what. He is really going to let go on Biden if Biden criticizes him or tries to do a direct reversal of Trump's stated initiatives. So I think Biden is just, going to do what Biden would be expected to do. Take a soft position, get to the sidelines, and have a nice sunset.
Mm-hmm. Nice sunset cruise. Alrighty, thank you, Jay. Chuck, how will we know, and Jay suggested it, will we know that Donald Trump really does have complete control over the GOP Senate and House of Representatives? Forget about the 38 that voted against him. If he indeed does get the debt ceiling turned around and that gets passed as far as eliminating the debt ceiling so Donald Trump could go on a spending spree as President of the United States, will that be a telltale sign or will be other telltale signs that Congress has relinquished its authoritative powers guaranteed in the Constitution?
Yeah, I think watching the first few weeks to see where his priorities are and how they shift, because one thing that we've seen as characteristic of Trump is that if he doesn't get something he wants one way, he either finds another way to do it or he shifts over to something else that he wants. He's got so many irons in the fire that watching how this plays out and watching how it develops over the whole 4-year period as to how power shifts away from him to whoever is going to succeed him as dominating the donors and the Republican Party, picking it out as this issue, or does he get this? It's timing and priorities. And that's a complex picture that's going to change over time. That's one thing that's been part of his pattern for all of our experience with him.
I want to ask a question to you guys. Increasing the debt ceiling, what comes to my mind, which it may not be accurate, is that enables Trump to spend all the money he ever wanted to spend in any project he wanted to undertake. But it's a debt ceiling. That's all it is. And I'm wondering whether in that bill, which was to avoid the shutdown, where he sought a provision to increase the debt ceiling, there was also something that would give him greater authority to spend the money. Because ordinarily, am I right? Ordinarily, debt ceiling does not necessarily enable the president to spend the money. Congress has to appropriate the money. So
Right.
there must be something in the woodpile here that goes beyond just increasing, for Trump, just increasing the debt ceiling. There must be some kind of additional authority that he's seeking, right?
Well, that's what I guess I'm trying to get at, because I always thought the debt ceiling was to pay for that which has already been spent. Not future debt to accumulate, but an agreement that we pay the bills that we've already enacted or have got underway. So I'm confused as to the importance of the debt ceiling with Donald Trump. Does he just not understand what the debt ceiling is? I don't know, maybe.
But we haven't seen the language in that bill. We don't know exactly what he was suggesting, but I bet if we looked at it, we find out that it's more than just a dollar amount. We find out there was something attached to it to give him additional authority to spend money on executive proclamations, and that's what he really wants, isn't it? He wants to be king. He wants to be the monarch who has as much authority as anyone ever had in the world. Merely increasing the debt ceiling isn't going to do it for him. There must be something else.
Well, I suggest that it's something to do with the Federal Reserve. He's always wanted to get the power over the Federal Reserve. They're an independent organization that, obviously sees monetary control over the finances of America, and he doesn't like it. And when he snaps his finger and he wants the interest rate to fall 300 basis points, and they don't comply, that really upsets him. And so I suggest that if there's a move as far as a power grab or a power structure grab, look in that direction.
Go to that issue. Chuck was saying that if he doesn't get what he wants right away, he'll get it later. Well, he wants to get rid of the Fed chairman, but the Fed chairman's not willing to go voluntarily. Now, what I find interesting is that yesterday the assistant Fed chairman dropped out. He said, "I'm out of here. I'm not going to be part of this." And he did exactly what Trump would have wanted him to do.
Mhm.
He resigned. So now I guess Trump will have control over his successor. But that doesn't mean that the problem is solved as far as Trump is concerned. So following on Chuck's rationale, which I agree with, Trump is going to put pressure on Powell until Powell finally resigns. And then he's going to have control. And what does he want that for? He wants to play with the interest rate himself, because he knows better than anyone else in the world how the interest rate should work. And P.S., remember, he's transactional and wants to be the wealthiest man on earth. So he believes that if he lowers the interest rate, it will have a personal benefit for him and his friends and his plutocracy.
Well said. And you're both exactly right that if Congress authorizes and appropriates money for budget items and categories, the president can delay the release of those funds. It can even withhold some of them for a period of time, but it can't increase them. It doesn't give him more money to work with. But one of the things that he did with the wall during his first administration is he thinks he can move money from one category to another as long as he can create some argument, even if it's entirely false, that it relates to that category, and so he can spend it from that appropriated source. So I think Jay's right about the interest rates. He's right about removing the debt ceiling in order to let him play with the available monies and budget items more to his liking.
That's probably the likely way, is he'll transfer from one. Can you go from one agency to another agency? Didn't he take out of the military, the Department of Defense budget for his wall?
Right. For Homeland Security, right.
Right. I'm just curious if he can go to the Department of Ecology and say, I'm taking the XYZ budget and I'm going to transfer it over to, my pet project over here in Department of Cockamamie.
Well, let me answer that by saying, sure, in a de facto way. Because if he does that, even if there's some limitation on doing that, who is going to argue with him? His own DOJ will be immediate. They will give him an opinion that to the effect that it's just fine. So I don't think anybody's going to argue with him about it. He can do it de facto from one department to another. Who knows? This is his specialty, to break all the rules.
Well, Jay, you've described before the second term has taken place, you've described a perfect dictatorship. Thank you. And with that, we've run out of time. So I'm going to go and ask for your last thoughts on this topic and be as creative as you wish. Chuck, with you.
If there's a way to step back from this, let him do what he's going to do with his cast of characters in DC. See how it plays out. Because what we need to do for the next 4 years is figure out how to come together with each other to protect ourselves and each other and the things that are important to us. So the place where I anticipate the greatest divide is going to come is between Washington government and ordinary citizens. Whether that will have any impact on what happens in the 2026 elections or 2028 elections remains to be seen. There's just a lot of uncertainty here.
Yeah, I tend not to ask questions on the last thoughts from our guests or co-host, but I can't resist. If Donald Trump gets to do whatever Donald Trump wants, or the answer is let's see where he goes with what he wants to do, does he risk articles of impeachment in the future?
No, because the linchpin of how he does what he does is to eliminate accountability.
True.
And
Very
the
true.
foundation of that is to impose a combination of loyalty and obeisance among his followers, his flock, whether it be cabinet members or political office holders, to not only not oppose what he wants, but to do what he wants. So as long as he's got protections against accountability and the adherence of enough of his followers, he can get away with just about anything he wants. And the question is, how do we best protect ourselves against the impacts of that over the next 4 years and beyond?
Okay, great words, Chuck. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Jay, you get the last word.
But first, let me answer Chuck's question. How do we protect ourselves? It's going to be increasingly difficult because the more power, the more unhinged ideas and initiatives that he comes up with, the more violations of norms and constitutional rights that he comes up with, the harder it will be to protect ourselves. My last comment actually centers around Mark Zuckerberg. Just a few years ago, he was a student at Harvard, I think it was, and he didn't graduate. Instead, he's doing this. And he's part of the plutocracy, for sure. He's committed himself, just the way Elon Musk and many others have done. And Jeff Bezos, all the big guys are all falling in line. Why does Trump want them? Why are they falling in line? I think the remarkable thing is that Zuckerberg had a substantive meeting with Trump, and within 24 hours, he knocked off the moderation, on Facebook and Instagram, because Trump doesn't want to have control. He doesn't want to be controlled over what he says. He wants to use these social media platforms. And I believe that's why he's also asking the Supreme Court to defer action on the TikTok case, because he wants to have one of his friends come in and buy it. And without moderation, he wants to use that too. He wants to control public opinion and public thought, just the way Goebbels did. We are in a time when Trump is trying to affect public opinion in every way. And Zuckerberg, to his undying shame, has gone along with that. the others will too. They're all going to fall in line with that. And these very powerful social media organizations are going to become part of Trump's state social media. And I worry about that going forward because that has unbelievable consequences.
Once again, I agree with you, Jay. It's a slow move, but it's effective. And we know through any takeover from a democracy to replace it with an autocracy, the first thing is control the message. And I think you're exactly spot on. It's happening right before our very eyes. So as they say, news at 11. We'll see how this goes. I think we know how it goes, but we'll see how it goes. And with that, I'd like to thank my esteemed guest, Chuck Crumpton. And I'd like to thank you, Jay Fidell, my co-host. This is American Issues Take One. I'm Tim Apicella, your host. Join us next week. And until then, aloha.